This is On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Over the next few weeks, we are dedicating our episodes to showcasing the recovery efforts in Abaco and Grand Bahama. Hurricane Dorian brought the single largest disaster in our country's history. The official death toll numbers, while only at 52, are expected to climb significantly in the coming days. On the ground, cleanup crews, assessment teams, NGOs, military officers, and medical experts are coordinating relief and recovery. On this episode, we take you on the ground in Marsh Harbour, Abaco, ground zero for Hurricane Dorian. You need only look around and signs of progress and hope are sprinkled around the island. Roads are being cleared, debris piled up, and some storefronts are being cleaned, possibly in anticipation of reopening. But the overall picture is still grim. There is destruction everywhere. As far as the eye can see, everywhere, a twisted mass of concrete, steel, roofing, shattered glass, broken windows and doors, and destroyed vehicles. And the more recognizable landmarks and familiar sights are just relics of their former glory. At the Rubis gas station on the main Marsh Harbour Road, the first supply of fuel arrived just prior to our visit. Police were on the scene, keeping order, as desperate residents lined up for what has become a very precious commodity. Waiting to get gas.
10 o'clock this morning.
10 this morning? Wow.
But I ain't worrying, but I'm happy, man. I could be here all day if I have to.
You get that gas?
Yes, sir. I need gas to get
This is
back
the
home,
first
to get
gas
back
station
home.
in this area to open?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what have you been doing since the storm to get gas?
Laying in my jacuzzi.
Your jacuzzi?
Yeah, man. Okay. I only had to come up my jacuzzi to get up here.
All right, you making the best of it?
Yeah, man. Got to make the best of it. All the liquor store's gone, so what can you do?
Oh, I have rum. You need rum?
Yeah, man.
I got that. Look at the rum you need.
What's me, man?
I got that.
All kind of Jack Daniels.
How long have you been waiting on gas?
Well, I've been waiting on gas. No, only a couple of minutes. Only 5 minutes, yeah.
This is the first gas station that's open?
First one ever open.
All right, so what you been doing in the meantime?
Well, I just run to Sandy Point and fill up my 55-gallon drums and bring it to Marsh Harbour, which isn't no problem. You know?
But that's a long ride from here.
No, man. That's only 45 minutes, and then I can
I
get a cold beer, I get a hot meal, and then I see a different scenery.
Okay.
I see in the real Abaco.
Okay.
So I did enjoy that.
Okay.
Then we have a grill.
Uh-huh.
We grill and eat down there and come back full.
Okay.
And I love it down there.
Okay. This is the first one in the area to open, right?
First one in the area, yeah.
So what have you all been doing before now?
Sandy Point, riding all the way to Sandy Point looking for gas. Yeah, shipping gas on the boat.
What would you say are the most immediate needs you have on the island right now? Obviously gas is one. What else you need right now?
Gas and water. Water too. So hopefully they'll have the water up soon.
But you're getting like bottled water and stuff like that you get?
Yeah. But we're looking for running water so you could do clean up, wash and different things like that too.
What about you, sir? How long you been waiting out here today for gas?
I've been here a little after lunch. There's a gentleman right there. He was here from 7 o'clock this morning.
That's the guy who's in the front?
Yes.
So you all heard that this station had some gas?
Yes, we heard and we came to try to get full up because where I'm from north, and there's no fuel down there. So we had to come up here.
Well, what you been doing since this?
Well, since then they had fuel trucks been coming down. But since the past few days, there haven't been none. I don't know what's the reason, but so I had to do what I had to do, come up here along with my pastor and come up here and see if we could get fuel.
We forged ahead. A group of Jamaican military officers were cleaning around the Seventh-day Adventist Church inside a wrecked sanctuary. The damage demonstrative of the sheer force this storm unleashed on this house of worship. Even now, the search continues for whatever is salvageable. A glance at the nearby pigeon peas and mud give a grim reminder of what is possibly the biggest tragedy on this island. Haitian immigrant communities reduced to rubble, a graveyard for countless even now, and a growing concern as rescue teams scour the wreckage to retrieve bodies still buried beneath collapsed structures. When we come back, a visit to the port of Abaco, plus the daunting task of feeding hurricane victims on the ground. Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true, and open debate they've been looking for.
And the icon goes to On the Record.
On the Record was born out of a desire to do something different. What we do every day helps our country, it helps our society, it helps to shape the views and opinions.
Listen, what is more dangerous than
Gentlemen,
corruption?
we've got to move very quickly. Let's wrap up.
Integrity.
It's all On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break. Welcome back to On the Record. This portion of our show is brought to you by Generali Insurance Limited. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. As a Category 5, Hurricane Dorian unleashed the unthinkable in Abaco. A visit to the island's main port gives you a glimpse into the awesome power unleashed. Yet, in the midst of all this destruction, there is hope. A right turn off the main Abaco Road and into the island's main seaport provides an almost frightful view of a ravaged port and shipyard. Containers are tossed, dislodged far from their original storage positions. Roofs and siding peeled back like tin can tops. Yet the port is open, receiving supplies daily. In the background, tents and vehicles indicate a very present military force. But the most encouraging are the large tents which radiate from the port's site, beacons of hope in the midst of a lot of destruction and despair. Underneath, volunteers of the World Food Program and World Central Kitchen. Thousands of meals go out from this site daily for the many who remain on the island.
We have 3 operations right now going on in the Bahamas. We have NASA, we have Freeport, and we are here in Abaco. It's the kitchen you guys have seen. We've been here since day one. We currently have a team here since before the hurricane hit, so we have ready for the aftermath of the hurricane. So today, for example, we're going to be distributing lunch at dinner. We did 2,000 hot meals for lunch, and we are about to do 2,000 more for dinner.
Where do your supplies come from, and where do your volunteers and your workers come from?
Well, the supplies, it's a challenge, as you can imagine, because of the island. So right now we have 3 helicopters. We have a vessel, a boat that's been moving products from Miami to Freeport, NASA, and here Abaco. Logistics has been a little bit of a challenge for us, but we've been able to produce to a level that we hit yesterday 300,000 meals, hot meals. So hopefully that's we keep offering all the food that the people are needing at this time, and we keep doing whatever it takes to do it.
And what's a typical day for you here in preparing your meals, etc.? I mean, how do you get started? What do you decide you're going to cook? How do you distribute it? Things like that.
So there are 2 things. That's a good question. It's producing is one of the things that we do, and distributing is an important part too. We want to make sure that the food that we're making is hot food. It gets to the right people. It gets in good condition. That's why you guys see here this we call cambros. It keeps the food hot. So what we do every night at the end of the day, we work on the orders we're going to have the next day. So we know neighborhood by neighborhood how many meals we need. So we start preparing early in the morning. The next day, I usually start around 6 a.m. with all the prepping. By 11 a.m. every day, we have lunch ready. So we start. We have pickups, people that come over here to get the food, and we also distribute the food to the more remote parts of the islands.
When you think you're capturing everyone pretty much on the island, people who need food?
I'm sure we're missing someone, but we are doing our best to get to everyone that needs a plate of food. So.
And where do your volunteers and your workers come from? Are they just volunteers? Do they come from all over?
Yeah, we have some chefs. They have the structure from the work from our nonprofit, but we rely on volunteers. We also believe that communities need to be part of the solution to whenever we go. So right now, you'll see here in the kitchen, we have local chef cooking, and NASA, same thing. We have local chef helping us. Some of them hopefully will end up being part of a long-term of our organization.
Okay, thank you.
On the outside, a steady stream of hurricane survivors arrive for daily meals. Eva Bain had just picked up her meals for the day when we caught up with her.
First of all, how is the food?
Oh, the food is great. Yeah, it's a good, healthy meal. It's all in one, and it's very nutritious.
Okay, you come out here every day to get...
Not really. They've been World Health Kitchen have been delivering food. Okay. But since we were up here and feeling a little peckish, we decided to get something to eat.
Well, that's very important. I see quite a few people getting food. So is there an abundance of food for people here on the island right now?
There are lots of food, yeah. So we just need to organize it, getting it to the different areas. So we're trying to make sure we get an organization to send food to further south. They're going as far as Bahama Palm Shores, which is good. And the other areas in central Marsh Harbour, Dundas and Murphytown. But we're just trying to organize it. In the south, Crossing Rocks where I live, I need some of this stuff too. I'm not in the mood for cooking. So Crossing Rocks and Sandy Point and the other areas further south. So that's why.
I gotta ask, it's been not quite 2 weeks yet, but how are things overall on the island? How's progress?
Well, progress is good. The organization of food is better because at the first going off, it was not organized at all. We had to go looking for water. But it's much better now. We know where the centers are, where we can go and get items. Yeah, it's hard for persons who cannot move, but we make sure and get enough food for especially the elderly in each area. Yeah, so it's better now.
And what would you say is most needed on the island? We passed a gas station a little while ago. There were quite a few people lined up. What would you say are some of the immediate needs right now?
Well, right now we're in the need of fuel. Fuel is the major thing on the island right now. Yeah, fuel. We've got a lot of water. Yeah, and like I said, it's getting better now. But fuel is the number one need on the island.
I see some kids moving around. What's going to happen with them? Are they going to get in school eventually? Have you heard anything?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I was just speaking to a lady over there. In Crossing Rocks, we still have a lot of children on the island. And what we would like the minister to do is to make an expedient executive decision what's going to happen to the children on the island because they're still here. Cherokee has started school already, which is good. We've started school in Crossing Rocks. We have parents that are volunteering their services to help out. And so we need to know, like she said, what's going to happen with the children that are still here. And that's important.
This is in the Marsh Harbour area?
In the Marsh Harbour area, right. But their school has started in Cherokee, which is south. Nothing has happened in Sandy Point as yet. But in Crossing Rocks, we took it upon ourselves with the principal and the parents to get our children in school.
Excellent, excellent. What would you say, though, is needed to get the kids in school? Is there anywhere that they would be able to hold school, or what do you think could happen?
Well, all of the schools in the south, we still have schools in the south that are okay. We didn't have any major damages from Cherokee going straight up, apart from a tornado in Sandy Point. But the schools are in excellent condition. I went to the school on the first day. We started in Crossing Rocks and nothing happened. Nothing happened, so the children are just ready for school. They're excited. I was more excited than the children to get. I'm so serious. Education is important, and that is, besides the fuel, that's our number two need. We got lots of children here that need to be in school. I mean now.
I know that it'll be a while before electricity gets back up, but what about running water? That's important to you as well, eh?
Yes, well, water and sewage is on the ground now, working on the water. But we don't have water in Crossing Rocks. Well, not fully restored, but we have school from 9 to 1. So what we can do is, because education is so important, and get those schools up and running, get the repairs done right away, put a generator at the school if needs be, whatever sanitation we need, whatever we need to have done to get schools up and running, we need it done urgently. We need some sort of hope. The parent just asked me what's going to happen to my child, other children that are here. I mean, if they want to bring them to Crossing Rocks, we welcome them. Even Cherokee is from grade 7 to 10. Cherokee has primary school, and they're still teaching children that are in high school also. And so we're going to do whatever it takes to get our children in school.
Everybody can't come to Nassau.
Oh, listen, I'm speechless when it says, and I'm definitely not coming to Nassau. I like the in and out. I love it sometimes, but everyone isn't coming. We still have lots of children on the island.
And people, and adults.
Listen, I almost thought, because I told someone, I said, I'm in Crossing Rocks. They was like, really? I thought everyone was gone. I was like, no. We still have lots of people on the island. Lots of people.
In our next segment, PAHO tries to avert a medical crisis on the island. Plus, later, a group of Abaconian business owners are already focused on restarting the island's economy. You're watching On the Record, dedicated to showcasing our recovery from Hurricane Dorian.
mad? Where in the world is mad now? Where in the world is Ellison Green Slade? And so it's about the
Listen,
value of cottage and Atlanta. So we can talk about
On the record tonight, the government's purchase of the Grand Botine is a hotly subject in the news. You are watching On the Record. Our episodes over the next few weeks are dedicated solely to keeping you informed about the recovery and relief efforts on the affected Hurricane Islands. This week, we focus on Abaco. Our trek around Marsh Harbour this week revealed the strong international military presence on the island. We also had a chance to catch up with representatives from the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO. On a normal afternoon in September, these streets and schoolyards would be littered with children, done with another day at school. But these days, the yards are burnt and scarred, filled only with debris. At the Abaco Central Primary School, officers of the French, Dutch, and German Army cleaned debris from washed-out classrooms. Piles of water-damaged and wind-beaten debris stacked high. It's hard to imagine that children roamed these halls in the not-too-distant past. All that remains nowadays are empty, soaked rooms with gaping holes, few windows, and broken doors. The only sound is an occasional door twisting in the wind. The scene at the Patrick J. Bethel High School isn't much better. What was once a center of learning is nothing more than hollow shells, exposed to the elements soaked through to the core. At the Abaco Clinic, a helicopter lands with a team of medics. Just reassurance that the clear and present danger exists for thousands still here on the island. PAHO's Senior Advisor for Water Sanitation and Environmental Health, Ton Vlugman, and his team are working to ensure any possible health crisis is quickly averted.
We are here with a multidisciplinary team, and we from the Ministry of Health, and we are assisting the Ministry of Health in the disease surveillance, epidemiology, and mental health of the survivors here in Abaco. And I myself am the water and sanitation advisor, so I am here representing the WASH cluster to look at the distribution of drinking water to the different population clusters with many NGOs. So there are several NGOs here bringing treatment plants, bringing distribution systems, bladder for storage. And so we need some coordination so to make sure that we cover the whole needed population, and of course that the water is of good quality. I brought in some water testing kits and also some chlorine for disinfection of the water to be trucked to make sure that the water is safe to drink.
What are some of the major risks right now to the island? What are some of the major health risks that could potentially impact the population?
Well, the surveillance we do is cough, fevers, and diarrhea, and so we're looking for respiratory illnesses. Fevers can be all kind of diseases, and diarrhea for gastrointestinal diseases. So to make sure that people have safe water, have safe food to eat, and this moment we believe that the risks are extremely low, because people drink bottled water, which is safe to drink. Food is being distributed, prepared, sterile, safe to eat. So at this moment we keep the finger on the pulse, but we are pretty sure that the risks are very, very low. Yeah.
And going forward over the next few weeks, etc., what will your work entail at that point as well? As people start to come back, as the rebuilding begins, it's now another phase. So what does your work then entail?
Well, continue surveillance and of course make sure that people practice proper personal hygiene. So personal hygiene awareness and education campaigns will be set up. It's also important that the electricity is being come back on quickly, because that also provides people with water. People have also backyard wells connected to the toilets, flush toilets. That's very important to improve the sanitary conditions. And as we see now, many buildings here, the hospital here and the government complex, they have now the generator running so they can pump water to flush the toilet, which is of course a major improvement of the situation. And this hospital is very outstanding, because it survived the hurricane without damage. The generator was running, so there was always water to flush toilets, to bathe, and so that was actually quite commendable that this hospital was built according to what we call the smart hospital, smart healthcare facility concepts, resilient to the storm, the impact, and also self-sufficient after the impact.
And what are some of the kinds of things that you think people will be coming, who will be presenting with, at this facility over the next few weeks? Whether it even be people who are working on the island, because you have instances where people are coming in to do work and they're living here almost.
Yeah, it is very important that when workers come back to the island, that basic facilities are available. That they have a place where they can stay in comfort, have basic sanitation, have a good meal, and that infrastructure where it not exists. Here, for example, at this hospital it exists, so health personnel is staying here. We have, with the PAHO, Ministry of Health team, are also staying here in relative good comfort. But if other workers come in, they need places where they have relative comfort, good food, sanitation, and can base.
You are one of several other organizations working. I'm asking, how do you work with the government and with other NGOs in this relief effort? Because there's so much to do. Where do you begin, and how do you work together? Again, how does that interconnectivity work?
So that is one of the major issues that we work in. We set up regular meetings, coordinating meetings, daily meetings, also per sector, but also multilateral, to make sure that everybody knows what the present situation is, coordinate their activities, so especially the many different actors, that they really work. As we said, there is many hands, one voice. We have all the same concept. We all want to save and help the people of the affected population to have a more convenient and more safe environment to live and work. But the coordination is extremely important. At 6 o'clock I go to a CIMIC meeting. It is a military civil coordination, because also the Dutch Army is here. They do a lot of work. And we coordinate it also with other NGOs. The Army is bringing in water, but it has to be distributed. So you have to know how to connect, be at the right place at the right time. This is one of the aspects. And also in the health sector, the surveillance, and the mental health aspects, you have to really go there as a team and address these issues. And again, the coordination is very important, but also when you do the assessments, and Sedima is here with another assessment team, because we now really go into the needs phase. Listen, this is what we actually need for the medium to long term, and we write project proposals, serve, for example, that where donor agencies and other countries, nations, will actually provide funds for the future and the restoration and rehabilitation of Abaco. We are here now in Abaco, but Grand Bahama is a similar story, of course. Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned that we haven't discussed is the mental health aspect and what is being done to address that, because obviously people who have come to this storm are very traumatized, and even the workers here, people who are in it afterwards, are facing a lot of issues. So what's being done to address that?
Well, that is a very recognized problem, and you are very right. People who survived the hurricane are very, very traumatized. Also, the rescue workers that come here, it is very difficult to work in these conditions. Now we have a team here of experts that assess the population and also determine the number of people and counselors that will be mobilized to come to Abaco and start working and provide counseling services. And we have, for the throughout the Caribbean, we have a team of psychologists, psychiatrists that are available and on standby to come and do specific now. Our team is out in the field now, and their assessment will actually pinpoint the most needy and the most important centers where to go.
And still to come, the Abaco Resurrect movement springs into action. Our final few segments on the other side of this one. Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true, and open debate they've been looking for.
And the icon goes to On the Record.
On the Record was born out of a desire to do something different. What we do every day helps our country, it helps our society, it helps to shape the views and opinions.
Listen, what is more dangerous than
Gentlemen,
corruption?
we've got to move
Is it
very
illusion
quickly. Let's
or
wrap up.
integrity?
It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
This portion of On the Record brought to you by Generali, your employee benefit solutions provider.
Well, this is On the Record, our final segment this evening, focusing on the recovery of a very important segment of the community. That's the business sector. I'm happy to welcome Krista Albury of the Abaco Resurrect Movement. Welcome to On the Record.
Thank you so much.
I want to talk about first your experience. You're an Abaconian.
Yes.
You were on the island during the hurricane. Let's go back to that period on the island and what was it like for you?
That morning, that was the morning that most Abaconians found out that Dorian had been upgraded to a Cat 5. We had woken up that morning to the news.
This is that Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. That morning, everything had seemed normal for most hurricanes. There was videos coming around, people getting videos of the tide starting to rise and the winds starting to pick up. But even still, by 9:30, 10 o'clock, it still wasn't that bad. But at the time, Dorian, we had been told, was not supposed to reach us until around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we all still believed we had time. Everyone was battened down and ready, making our morning coffee. And then around 10:30, the winds changed. And I know I'm not the first Abaconian to say it, but the winds sounded different. I've been through hurricanes in Abaco before, but this time the sound was deeper, like a roar we had never heard before. And that's when our home started getting hit with debris, but it was holding. At around 11:30, the wind got extremely strong. From later reports, we found out we were getting close to the eye wall on the first half. And a friend of our family who was staying with us at the storm mentioned that the wind sounded like a tornado in a movie. And suddenly we heard a crack and my roof began to come off. I had myself, my husband, our 6-year-old son, and our family friend there, and our pets. And we ran into the bathroom, and the manhole cover inside the bathroom started shaking, like doing a dance, and then suddenly it shot up like a bullet and was just gone. So we ran into my son's room where the roof seemed to be holding on that side of the house, and it took 2 of us on the door leading into the living room to hold it as the winds were just rushing through the house. By that point, the door pushed open and we could look out into the kitchen, and we saw the contents of our kitchen spinning up. And that's when we realized it was a tornado that was hitting our house. We managed to get the doors barricaded, and we realized, looking at our phones, we still had a bit of service left, that we only had about 30 minutes before the eye was over us. So if we could just hold out for 30 minutes, we could try and make a break for it. We had been told by a coworker of mine, he was riding out the storm at Abaco Beach Resort. To get to Abaco Beach Resort, it's holding for the moment, so get here as quick as you can. The eye came over us, and we managed to get out of the house. We ran down to our truck, but then we realized that the bottom of our driveway had around 6 feet of water in it. And when we tried to get to my car, we realized that the only exit road to get out towards Abaco Beach Resort had about 3 50-foot sport fishing boats blocking the way, so we had no way out. My neighbor luckily had a 2-story home. The bottom story was a concrete garage that she tossed the keys down to us to let us in to take shelter, because we didn't know how our house was going to hold up during the second half of the storm. The strangest part of it all was it all went sideways from the really bad destruction through to the eye wall, through the eye. It was only about an hour. So
it came quickly.
It came very quickly. It seemed like it hit us, and then suddenly the eye came. And I know a majority of Abaconians that I've spoken to about their story had to find different shelter during the eye.
And you're talking about how long the period of the eye was. How long was it?
I wish I could give you an accurate number. To me, it felt very short. We had contemplated running to Abaco Beach Resort from our house, but we had no idea how long we had in the eye, so we took shelter in their garage. Not with my child. So we loaded up in the garage, and it had 2 rolling garage doors, and doors held for about 10 minutes. And then one of them, it broke off the railing and started to collapse in. My husband, Robert, him and our family friend each grabbed one of the garage doors, and they held them until the wind shifted. That was about 7 hours.
They held the door?
They held the doors against the storm. There was wind and water blowing in through where the door had started to collapse, and my husband was taking the brunt of it directly to his unshielded face. But we knew if those garage doors collapsed and got pushed in, the force they would have come and would have killed us. So they held the doors until the wind shifted and we could prop a piece of 2x6 we had found against the doors to hold them. But it was a very long night while the winds were still howling. At that point, we knew the storm was on its way to Freeport, but it just seemed to never stop. We had guessed it had stalled by Freeport or slowed down, but
the conditions continued.
Yes.
Take us now to once you were able to leave that space in that garage. What happened next? Where did you go? And what was the atmosphere like on the way to that?
The atmosphere was intense. The winds had died down. We were still getting very strong gusts, but it felt to be around probably 60 to 70 mile per hour gusts, but that was far better than what we had faced the previous night. The rain was coming down like knives from the wind, like you just got soaked. But Abaconians were moving at that point. We had a group of people that we know who came over from regattas, found us and checked us out. During the second half of the storm, we heard when my neighbor's roof got ripped off, and we heard her scream. But at the time, the gusts were too strong. We couldn't get up there to get her. So as soon as the winds had died down that morning and that group of men came around, we went upstairs and we had to force her door open, and we found her. She was alive, and brought her down to the garage with us until we had secured other shelter. My husband left to go to Abaco Beach Resort to find my coworker. And once he found him, he came back to the garage with us and said, look, we've got to move. There are people swarming the streets now, and there are many with good intentions, like neighbors and people we knew who were trying to help find people in the rubble or help pull people out of damaged houses. But there was a lot of people who didn't have as good of intentions. By that point, the looting had already started. So we made the decision to pack up my child, pack up our dog, shove our very angry cat in a backpack, and trek to Abaco Beach Resort. we could not pass the road out. So we tried to go through the condominium complex across the street from us, and there we actually ran into Chad Sawyer, the owner of Maxwell's. He was trying to get the gate open to let us through for an easier journey. He was absolutely soaked. All of us were, but the door was jammed. The gate was jammed. So he told us, pass everything over. He'll help us. So he took my son, took the animals, held on to my son as me and my husband and our family friend climbed over the wall at Regattas to get a little bit easier of a path through. Walked through the remains of a friend of ours' home that used to block the way in between Regattas and the main road, but we only found a foundation at that point, and walked the main road through what was there. There was boats, there was containers, there was office materials from the office building down the road. It almost looked like the walls there just exploded when the storm surge hit them. There was debris everywhere, power lines down. I don't think we saw a pole that was standing. And made it to the Abaco Beach Resort, where one of the staff members greeted us halfway down the driveway. It turned out that one of the insurance adjusters that was staying there had sacrificed his room and roomed with another insurance adjuster to give our family a room that had a dry bed. And their staff, one of them, I wish I could remember his name, but he was incredible. He walked up in a rain jacket with a headlight on, with a tray in his hands after he got us settled in, and it had cups of hot soup in it and what was left of the bread they had in the kitchen.
Wow. You're at Abaco Beach now. Hours since the storm has passed. What's the atmosphere? What started happening? And what gave you the most concern at that point?
Every door at Abaco Beach Resort, each of the rooms, some of them fared better than others, but all of the locks were broken. Some of this was due to the wind gusting in, other ones was due to, I found out later, that people had started looting people's rooms while they were taking shelter during the eye at below decks, which was the main shelter at Abaco Beach Resort. So safety had become a precaution, but a lot of people had started moving once the storm passed. They started moving towards Marsh Harbour Clinic, and luckily we ran into, on our floor, we ended up making somewhat of a little community between neighbors there, where one of us had a gas stove, someone else had a few extra cans of butane. One of the other, the room next to ours, their condo was at Regattas on the hill. So we would go out and we got whatever was salvageable from their kitchen, my fridge, and we kind of ate rather well for a couple of days, trying to eat a lot of the meats and products that could spoil before they did. They also arranged scavenging journeys to Maxwell's, where Maxwell's actually opened up their doors to the community. I understand what they were doing was trying to get the needs to where it was, so when you approach, they would just ask you, who's in your party, what do you need? And they would load you up. But at night, the first night we were there, someone tried to force their way into our room. Luckily, though, the family dog was with us and has a rather impressive bark for his size, and that made sure that no one was interested in our room afterwards.
What did you and your party witness at other properties nearby? What was happening to people who were hunkered down in some of those properties?
Condos at Regattas were being taken over by a groups of men. One condo that I knew who it belonged to. Within a day or two after the storm, I don't know if they evacuated or whether or not they were forced out, but suddenly there was 12 men there. They were moving around from condo to condo at regattas, and suddenly all those properties that I saw people during the storm at, I could see them from my property. We were looking at each other from the balconies while we were behind the, holding up the garage doors. Suddenly there was a lot of new faces there, and I didn't see anyone who had been there originally during the storm.
Did they appear armed?
We had heard rumors of armed groups. I know my husband, on his journey to try and help restore cellular communications in Abaco, did see firearms being carried by people. There was attempted robberies of people passing with supplies. They tried to rob my husband for the supplies that he got from Maxwell's for our child. They didn't succeed, but they did try. There was a lot of houses that I've seen, and reports from other Abaconians coming in that there was people inside a lady's house talking about what they were going to take out of it, but that they would come back later. They didn't even know she was there. She went home to try and bathe, and they just didn't check the bathroom, which is probably one of the only reasons she's still healthy and safe at this point, is they didn't even realize she was there. But there was mass looting going on. There was washing machines being pulled out of hardware stores that had been underwater. So it was looting for the sake of looting. It wasn't looting to go in to get supplies that would help you in this situation.
Not necessities.
Yeah, it was stealing broken wet TVs off of people's walls. It was taking people's phones. It was taking valuables out of homes. It was taking electronics and large appliances out of businesses that were underwater for many hours during the storm surge. So none of these items would even be useful in the future, but they were taken just for the sake of taking. And these same people who were taking that were trying to get out on evacuation vessels with these appliances that they had taken.
I can't even begin to understand what was the thinking behind being rescued and taking appliances. It makes absolutely no sense. Krista, we have some more stuff to talk about. We're going to take a break and come back. Stay with us. We're back right after
Matt, where in the world is Matt Lauer? Where in the world is Alison Greenslade? And so it's about the low value of cottage in Atlanta. So we can talk about it.
On the record tonight, the government's purchase of the Grand Abaconian is a hot subject in the news. We're talking to Krista Albury of the Abaco Resurrecting Movement. Krista, we heard such a riveting story from you just about your fight for survival and what it was like. And those of us who did not come through this can only begin to imagine and sympathize. But we are at the point now of trying to recover.
Yes.
I want to talk about what your movement is trying to do to recover. You and so many other Abaconians are here in Nassau.
Yes.
And like so many people have told me, it's temporary. We're going back. We're going to rebuild. So I want to talk about what that Resurrect movement is trying to do at this point.
So the Abaco Resurrecting Movement came out of a partnership between private entities, the Abaco Chamber of Commerce. We've also worked together with the local town council. And today, actually, we are having our first meeting with Prime Minister Minnis to hopefully segue into a partnership with the government. Abaco on the whole has always been one of the strongest economies in the Bahamas. And we are appreciative of very much of all the help that we have been getting to get our people out of Abaco, start cleaning up, having respect for the removal of any remains found there so that we can look towards the future. Abaco is not an island that we intend to be like this for very long. So what the Abaco Resurrect movement is truly about is the restart of commerce, the restart of that glorious economy that helped fuel so much within Abaco, because there's been a lot of talk about tent cities and relocating Abaconians back to Abaco. But if there's only a tent city, how are we supposed to start to regrow? We need jobs. We need financial institutions reinstated over there. We need ATMs. There's no point in paying somebody if nobody can get their money, if money's...
Or if there's nothing to buy.
Exactly. So what we're doing is we're working with many of the local businesses in Abaco, Abaco-based and also nationally based, and also some that are internationally based, who have a vested interest in restarting commerce as quickly as possible, because once we start commerce, there'll be jobs that will fuel home rebuilding, that will resurrect our tourism industry. And there actually are a few businesses in Abaco that fully intend to open on November 1st for the start of the tourist season. I know Pete's Pub is one of them, telling us we're coming back all over for a couple of blasters on November. So we intend to be there. So what we are working on is this partnership where the private sector, we have a lot of power behind us when it comes to strings that we can pull. We've had offers from numerous international agencies and those who specialize in the field of disaster recovery, engineering, development of power grids, to help us regrow Abaco, not only how we were before, but much better. We can look towards situations and problems that are seen on many out islands, like zoning, proper enforcement of building codes, and also to ensure that each island's needs are met in a way that makes sense for both the community and also for our tourists that are going to be coming back, we know, very soon.
The elephant in the room is the Haitian immigrant population, primarily in the mud and pigeon peas, and those communities have been destroyed.
Yes.
They have long been issues of contention for the people of Abaco, and in so many ways. What has the discussion been around that community?
The discussion around that community has been one of mixed emotions. There are many within Abaco who may not have even realized that a friend, a colleague, someone that you ran into in your everyday life actually resided within the mud or the peas. It was not exactly something that you shouted from the rooftops for some people.
It was not a sense of pride for people.
But at the same token, we are absolutely devastated as an island of the massive loss of life that was seen within the mud, the peas, sandbanks, and the farm. However, Abaco has taken a very strong stance with our government now that at this point, as shown by the devastation caused by Hurricane Dorian, that these shantytowns cannot be allowed to rebuild. The shantytown of the mud and the peas was on low-lying land. It was within half a mile, if that, from the harbor, from a direct hit from what they said was a 25-foot storm surge.
You can see it.
Yeah.
You can see the trailers from the port.
From the port, got flung into the mud.
Yeah.
There are many who had no idea what was coming at them. The wave of evil that was coming their way, just causing destruction. And with that in mind, the Abaco business community is looking towards that area. Marsh Harbour cannot allow that to happen again within our area. Treasure Key, the same with the farm and sandbanks, because we cannot allow people to live in conditions that, this is now the second time in recent memory that a storm has pushed a storm surge directly through Marsh Harbour Harbor. First, I believe, was Hurricane Jean, and now Dorian. Both times, though this time worse, the mud and the peas was devastated. We cannot allow something that is now becoming a regular when it comes to this type of natural disaster to continue to go on, for us to see people needlessly die. So with that in mind, the Abaco business community and Project Resurrect is going to be heavily focused on building codes, zoning, ensuring that working with engineers to see maybe some of these places that we have been building or allowing building to go on just doesn't work unless that land is heavily modified or the structures that we're putting on them are engineered to be able to withstand something like Dorian.
You're now building for Cat 5s.
Yes.
You know, and that's the reality, I think, all over the Bahamas, that we have to now, that this is the new normal for us.
Or even as the, I believe it was the chairman of the UN said, this is a Cat H. This is a Cat Hell. This is something we have never seen before. No one has seen this kind of destruction before. And Marsh Harbour is no stranger. Abaco is no stranger to storms. We've survived many of the...
I've covered many of them.
We're kind of a favorite target every once in a while.
Yeah.
And never has Marsh Harbour, in the past 100 years, the last record of this was, I believe, 1926 they pulled up, that they reported that Marsh Harbour, in their mind, had been wiped off the map. And we rebuilt. Now, it's been 100 years since the storm that wiped us off, and we've faced many strong storms from then. And for this to do what it did means that building codes need to be looked at. Though I will say, in the case of what we saw in Marsh Harbour, Murphy, and Dundastown, it's almost impossible to build for a storm surge of that size, and it's also impossible to build against what many felt was a 70-mile wide F4 tornado. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I've got to ask this too as we prepare to wrap up, that we focused on Marsh Harbour, and a lot of the damage that we've been featuring just on this network and in other media houses has been Marsh Harbour. Although we've been able to get reports and see images from other areas like Abaco, etc. The thing that struck me the most, that we would have even discovered earlier in this program, is that the island is not empty.
No.
And I think that is the impression a lot of people have been given, that everybody's evacuated and the whole island's empty and everybody's run away and they're all here in Nassau, or they've gone to the US or other parts. But there are communities that are functioning and that have already started rebuilding, but people are across the length and breadth of the island still.
Yes. Right now, the communities in both the far north and the far south of Abaco and the Keys are truly showing the tenacity that the Abaconian people are known for right now. Dorian wiped out Marsh Harbour, Murphy, Dundastown, Treasure Key. Massive damage was sustained there. It did massive damage to our Keys. But there's a special kind of person that live on the Keys. They don't give up too easily. One of my coworkers, in fact, we just finally got off the key for the first time yesterday afternoon.
Someone described it as the loyalist.
They have in reports that I've gotten from Hopetown, Manowar, Green Turtle Key, and Guana Key, is that almost every one of our closer to the mainland keys. And I believe Grand Key is also working on it as well. They've been receiving supplies. Most of it has been coming in by private boat from the States and going directly to the Key as needed. They have their own distribution centers that they've set up. None of this has been set up by outside sources. This is all set up by locals. In Hopetown, the Hopetown Volunteer Fire Department has been a massive source of strength for that community, working on both cleaning up the island as best they can. They've been working with the U.S. forces that have come over to help start looking at buildings to decide what gets condemned, what's salvageable. Working out dinners. Town hall meetings are going on regularly in Green Turtle Key. So they have truly shown amazing tenacity in the face of this storm.
I think that's important for us to recognize as well, because I think a lot of times we expect everything to come from central government. We expect government to be on the ground everywhere doing everything, but it's community.
Yes.
It's the work of the community. It's the self-help in the community that is so important. And I'm so happy you brought that up, because I think a lot of times we we don't recognize the role of our individual communities in our own restoration. We live there. You live there. You know what's needed, particularly if that help is coming from the outside as well. That's so important.
Exactly, and with the Keys and with the settlements to the north and the south, I know that Bahama Palm Shores, Casuarina, they did take some damage, but not nearly as bad. They've been working very hard to set up their communities to be functioning communities and assist anyone that they can with it. They've been housing people who have come back who are from Marsh Harbour, so they have a place to stay. They've been working out feeding schedules, and with all of this in mind, though I look at the destruction of the island that I love with all of my heart, I know that the biggest challenge that nobody saw coming was that the challenge of convincing Abaconians to leave. We're not giving up on our island. Good. We intend to be back as quickly as possible. More and more every day I'm getting reports of Abaconians who are going back, starting the work that has to get done. Now, of course, everybody is focusing on Marsh Harbour right now, but a majority of that is because we can't touch Marsh Harbour right now. There are too many health risks right now. They were still working on collection of human remains. So until we get the health all clear from Marsh Harbour,
very important, yes.
We need to be very cautious about work there. But looking at the Keys, the northern and the southern communities, once we're allowed back in there and we can start to get back to work, I think Abaco will come back better and stronger than anyone has ever seen.
That's a perfect way to end. I just want to first of all commend you and the folks of Abaco for your resiliency and your determination to get in and to do the work, and that's so important. I've been talking to a lot of people on the ground there, and there's a lot going on. There's so much more that needs to be done. I don't want people for 1 minute to think that, you guys are good.
No.
You need as much help as you can get and more. And so I want to encourage you to continue to keep working, and to also, it's important to let the world know what is happening, because hope is important. People have to hold on to hope.
The Hopetown Lighthouse is on. It's calling us all home.
Yeah.
We want to get there as soon as possible, which is a big focus of Project Resurrect. Once the partnership that we reach with the government hopefully comes through as quickly as possible, then we will have boots on the ground and Abaconians will be able to come home.
Good stuff, Krista. All the best to you. Continue. We'll be in contact quite a bit. We'll talk. I like going to Abaco.
All right.
I've got some other places to visit as well, so we're going to keep you guys in focus for as long as necessary to ensure that you get up and get what you need and get Abaco back to where it needs to be.
Thank you so much for
So
that.
thank you so much for coming. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of On the Record. I want to, first of all, thank my guest, Krista Albury. Also, thanks to Bahamas Evac and Nico Gibson for providing us the air transportation into Abaco this week. We appreciate it. We could not have done it without you. Thank you to all of the people of Abaco for welcoming us and helping us to share their stories. And to the people in Grand Bahama, I want you to know that we are coming next week. Look for our team on the ground. We have not forgotten about you. We are on the way. On behalf of my production and technical teams, thank you so much once again. I'm Jerome Sawyer. See you next time.